What's up, Samanians? Welcome back to a new community selected tutorial. Today we're going to implement in-app purchases within our Ionic app using Capacitor for iOS and Android. So a lot to do today. I've already started a blank new application, and actually the coding for this tutorial won't be too much because we have other things to do, like configuring the application. So what I did is I started a blank new application using Angular, I enabled Capacitor, and I also immediately set my package ID. The package ID is what you previously used with Cordova inside your config XML, and it's also what you're using to identify the app in iOS and kinda also for Android, the package name. So if you already have an application, you should have this ID. And if not, you can now start a new application and then use the package ID. Besides that, I only installed two packages, the Ionic native package for in-app purchase and also the Cordova plugin for in-app purchase. And because we're using Capacitor, we're only running the npm install for this package. We don't need to run Cordova plugin add. That just won't work. Then you can go ahead with Ionic build and add the platforms, and then you will see from the logs already, it's also when I go like npx cap sync, it will list our Cordova plugin in that command. So found one Cordova plugin for Android, sorry about that, and for iOS most likely also the same. So Capacitor picks up the Cordova plugin if it is installed like this, and we can use it completely like we're used to with Ionic Native. Now, that is the easy part of the application. To wrap this up, simply go ahead and add the package we just installed, which is the, let me bring this in, the in-app purchase 2 from Ionic Native in-app purchase 2. ngx to the array of your providers, and then you're ready to go. We will focus on these two pages in a second, but for now, let's move to our applications, because that is actually the tricky part. And I have to admit, it is easier for iOS than it is for Android. At least that's what I've found. So, I will just tell you the things you need to go through if you don't have an application. So if you don't have an application yet, you have to create a new identifier in the iOS developer portal. Go ahead with an app ID, select whatever you want, com, dev, dactic. In-app purchase is what I used, and this is also what became the package ID I used during the install of the blank project. And you can also later find it, let's close a few things, in the Capacitor config right in here. So Capacitor will use this in the beginning to create your native projects, and it won't change the projects afterwards. So use it in there, and that's it. You don't need to enable anything else here, but once you get your application for iOS, you can head over to App Store Connect in your applications. Create a new application, select the app you just created in the developer account, so the ID. And now the important part is going into your application features to in-app purchases. And within this category, you see I've created two, well, how do we call them? Purchases. Basically, you got an option of these four things. You can get consumable, fish food for a fishing app, or like gems for whatever app. A non-consumable, perhaps a pro mode or something that is just used once. And then Apple got auto-renewable subscriptions, which are, I think, also available on Android. And this one, non-renewing subscription, is specific to iOS, so we will of course leave this out. And we will also not use the renewable subscription, but actually that's pretty cool because Apple has a logic when testing these things. Like a month of the subscription is like 5 minutes, so you can easily test these longer time frames and even test how a purchase behaves after a year or anything like this. But let's try set up another consumable. Let's see. And then you have to enter a name, an ID, a pricing. The display name and description is actually what is finally displayed in your application, so make sure to use the real values here. And then you also need to pass in a screenshot for review information. I don't really know why, because it's not used in any place. It's just, yeah, I don't really know why it's used. So I did this for a consumable and a non-consumable. I gave them names. So this one, for example, cool gems, easy price, and here we got 100 didactic gems, whatever, just random information. The important part is actually the product ID. So we got this one for the consumable and we got this one for like the pro version. And these two values are now also used within our code. So I set them up here because we need to fetch the information for these IDs. Actually, we might be able to do it without them, but it's a good idea to keep them anyway. And in fact, that is everything you have to do for iOS. It's pretty easy. So just create your app identifier, add the app in App Store Connect, and add the in-app purchases for your application, and then keep track of the product ID. I would recommend to use the same for Android, which makes it a bit easier, I think. For Android, the process will take you more time because you actually have to create a new application. You need to upload a build to that application, and that build has to be verified. Currently, as you can see, they take quite long. In the past, this was like a few minutes. Today, I'm happy that it just took 1 day, and it's now also on my Android device. And because of this, you have to go through all of these categories just like you would go through if you release a regular Android application. But perhaps you already got that, so that would be easy. Also, to test these things, it is actually enough to move the build to a closed track like Alpha. That's really all you need to do. Upload your APK here, and then you can also deploy the same APK to your device. You actually don't have to download it through the store. It will work even if you just directly deploy the APK to your device. Now, 2 or 3 more things for Android. So first, for your app releases, make sure if you're using an alpha test that you have a list of testers and the emails of your testers included. Number 1. Number 2, so yesterday here was just a note that there's no URL yet. And also, once you click here, the status of this application was pending publication or something like this. In that state, you won't get any products. So don't be frustrated if you don't immediately see your Android products, because you really have to wait until it is published. It is published, so in alpha, in the alpha channel, but still it is important that it is published and that you see the URL here. Now I immediately saw my products and I was really happy because I thought I made a mistake, but be patient until your application is published here. So again, published simply means the alpha track is available. I have no application in production. This application is not rolled out. You can't access it anywhere. It just needs to be in alpha, and then they need to check it, and it needs to be internally published, I would say. That was number 2 or 3. And then there's another thing, because you want to test on Android and make a test purchase perhaps. For that, you need to go to your settings in the Play console and scroll down to the license testing. And in here, put the emails. For example, I generated just a random email account for a test user with Gmail and added it in here. If the email of a tester is in here and the tester is signed in on the Android device, the tester can use the application and make a dummy purchase, which is completely for free and will be approved immediately. We will see this in a little demo soon. So this is my next recommendation. So put your email into the testing group, or first of all, create a new email for testing, put it in the license testing group, put it in the beta or alpha testing group, wait until your Android application is released with a real release build. I think these are the things I really wanted to mention because I really hate this error and it makes me always click on the wrong items. It can be tricky with Android. It's not immediately available, and I hate it as a developer to wait on these things, but be patient. The code works. Just wait until your app is ready and make sure your email and accounts are ready, configured in the Play console and also on the device. Now, finally, we can move into this plugin. It actually kind of works basically the same like it does if you use it with just only Cordova. What you need to do is let's create a few functions. This is just a little helper, so register products will be filled out soon, and set up listeners as well. First of all, we can set for debugging the store verbosity to debug. And the store is actually the most important element of our page. So private store in app purchase 2. And the import comes from the package once again. Because I need to update a few elements on my screen, within a promise, I will also inject the change detector, because in the past a lot of people had problems, or I also had problems with this. My views were not updating, and there's actually a simple fix to do this. So this is just for debugging, and now we can continue to register products, because within our store we need to tell it about the products that are available. And once we've told the store which products are available, we can actually fetch the real information, because you can't just show a page and put in a few buttons, buy this, buy that, set a price, whatever you think. That's not going to work, because you need to show or present the real information of the consumable. So for iOS, we really need to show this display name, this description, and also the price we get back from Apple for our country. Actually, I totally forgot to show you where you can add the in-app purchase here. Right in store presence, in-app products, manage products. I think you can only upload it once you have uploaded the first build, but then it works basically the same like iOS. You put in a product ID, title, description, make sure you change it to active, and add a price, and that's basically it. So as you can see, I used the same IDs in here as well. So it works really seamless on both platforms. I changed the price because, I don't know, I just want to pick a random price here, but that's not the important part. Make sure that it is active and that you get the items listed here in in-app products, managed products. Sorry that I forgot about that. So we need to register our two products, which means the key for our gems and also the product pro key type. This time it's not a consumable, this should be a non-consumable. Okay, there we go. And once you're done register or setting up your product, you can call the store refresh, which will load, or let's show, after you're done registering your store's products and event handlers, time to call store refresh. All the complex behind the scenes work to load product data from the server and restore whatever already have been purchased. And that's where our listeners come in, because we can now listen to different events of the store. So we can say this.store when, and then do a lot of things. We could have a query or an in-app product. So let's just query for every product. And oops, once you get this, you can now listen to these specific events. So there's actually a state machine, which I kind of think is interesting to take a look at within the repository. So you register something and it is either invalid or valid. Once it is valid, somebody might request it, and then the flow starts of initiated, approved, then you might download something, in the end it is finished, or it even goes to owned for non-consumables. And otherwise, after finished, it goes all the way back to being valid and available for purchase again. So our gem item, which we could purchase a few times, will go back to valid, and the non-consumable, which is the pro version, will in the end have the status of owned. So for every product, we now want to listen to the approved event. and this will return product. That was the type. So let's add this. And now we could make a simple check and check if the product ID is our pro key, which means we should somehow enable the pro version. Of course, this is just really a super dummy code. Or if it is the gems, then we increase the amount of user credits or anything like this. And at this point, I will also call this .ref detect changes to update our view once we take a look at it on the device. To complete the flow, so this now happens whenever a user presses the buy button and the purchase is successful, then it becomes approved. Remember our state machine. If you have more content, you could now put the product into downloading and download it. But we will simply call p.verify, which will end this block. And then in the end, we can also check verified. Once again, this will be an in-app product. And then we can call finish, because this will in the end complete the transaction. And as I said, the non-consumable will go from finished to owned, and the other one will go from finished to valid. And that's why we call this in the end to put the state machine into the correct state once again. We could actually also listen to other events or only events related to a specific ID. So when and just passing in the ID would work as well. And this is especially interesting since the user might only purchase the pro version once. And then if you don't really store this in the correct place and the app doesn't know that the pro version is purchased or was purchased previously, you can also listen to the own state, because when you call the store refresh in the beginning, all these things will actually be executed again if the different products are in different states. And remember, after the purchase, our pro version is in the own state, and that is exactly what will be returned whenever we start the application again. So this block will always be triggered again. It is a good idea to check for owned products. Now, two more functions. Let me just bring them in because I guess, we are already way too long in the video. The purchase function is pretty easy. You just call the store order and pass in the product or the ID of the product. You don't need to do anything in here because this will be triggered kind of immediately just after a successful launch, but perhaps you can show an error in this case. And also in the past, it was always necessary to have a restore button. So restore button would be fine with simply calling the refresh function of the store. And if you set up your listeners correctly, then you would get the information which products are already owned by the user. Of course, if there's a non-consumable, it will not return as owned. No. If there's a consumable, it will be not returned as owned, simply because you don't want to add like the gems once again. So it's like purchasing something in Clash Royale and then deleting the app and installing it again. You won't get that again. So that is the difference really between a consumable and non-consumable. Anyway, I think I kind of forgot something in the beginning, which is actually the most important part. And that is, you can't just list the information. As I said, you have to retrieve it from the store. And therefore, you should wait for the ready event of the store. I think, too many brackets. Okay, that's fine. So once you're ready with the store, you should keep track of the products by using the store.products. You can also log this out if you want to, and you can call our little detect changes after this is done. So everything is updated in the view. It is an array of products. It contains the titles, the descriptions, everything we have specified within iOS or App Store Connect and within this section. Now, finally, the HTML, I will bring it in and we will go through it because that is not really super interesting. Just a list of our products on click we want to purchase, and I pass simply the whole product because that just works fine. You can paste or put or pass a product to the order function, and that's will work. As I said, title description should be listed, and also the price and currency. Don't use any hard-coded values in here, just don't do it or your app might get rejected. Perhaps a restore button, as I said, and finally a little item to show our current count and if we are a pro. Now, you have to build this application for iOS and Android. For iOS, standard build as usual. For Android, you have to make a release build. You should check out the article linked below this video. We'll not go through this, but it is actually kind of easy to use Gradle and setting up just your release key store file, and then with one command you can generate or install a release version and upload it to Google Play. But now let's take a look at this on a device. Alright, here are the two applications side by side on my devices. On iOS I actually registered something wrong when I was testing these tutorials, and I get back this entry. I don't know why. I could filter it out, but really just I don't know why. What we see is that I got exactly the titles I've defined inside App Store Connect and the prices, and for Android it's the same different text, exactly what I defined within Google. So these elements are really now retrieved or are the actual retrieved products from iOS and Android stores, and nothing that was hard-coded in our apps, only the ID, but that's really all. Let's go ahead and purchase something in both applications. Alright, iOS purchase is going on. Let's try to buy, and hopefully we get a yes, you're all set, purchase successful, and we see the gems were increased by 100. On Android, test card always approves, looking nice, so let's buy this item, and so payment successful, and there we go as well. Let's unlock the Pro version for both apps. For Android, once again, test card always approves, and now is Pro should hopefully move and change to true because we're listening to the events. Same for our iOS app, of course. If I enter the credentials correctly and press buy, we should also see after a second, perhaps a nice loading. Wait, since you've already purchased this, would you like to get, yeah, okay, let's get it for free. And then there we go, we are pro as well. So that was our episode on in-app purchase with iOS and Android and Capacitor. Actually not too different from Cordova. The Cordova plugin in the past required a billing key from Android. We haven't used it, and you see it still works. And as far as I know, after reading through a few GitHub issues, that key is also deprecated because you can also do these things on a server for validation, which is actually safer. And I would also recommend, if you make any kind of these transactions in your app, that you have a server to store the information or perhaps a receipt of the purchase. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. As always, let me know if you got any questions or any wishes for upcoming tutorials. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and stay subscribed so you get notified about all the new tutorials, quick wins, and other app development and web development videos on this channel. If you want to learn more about Ionic with in-depth courses, a community of like-minded developers so you can learn and build your apps faster, you should definitely check out the Ionic Academy, which is my code school to help you with everything Ionic, with a huge library of courses, material, and a supportive Slack channel so we can get your app out. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you inside the next video. Have a great day and happy coding. Simon.